Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the webinar on Canadian-style resumes, immigration purposes, and for job. You are able to join us this Friday evening or maybe afternoon, or don't know where you are from. Maybe it's morning at your end of your place, but we are very happy you can join us. And I really sincerely hope and trust that this webinar will be of value to you. This webinar is designed having in mind applicants willing to immigrate to Canada, and for applicants, for individuals who already are in Canada and became immigrants and are changing their careers or seeking new job opportunities. My name is Dalia Milmantas. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and I have for many years been assisting foreign nationals in both temporary resident applications and permanent resident applications. I gained extensive experience being employed by 2 law firms in Toronto, and then I started my own practice. As a result of this extensive experience, I am equipped, I'm able to manage a wide range of applications, immigration applications and immigration-related applications. And I'm very excited and I'm very happy that Yossra El Sonbaty, a career and life coach, was able to join me. So she has 7 years of experience helping students, professionals, and newcomers to achieve their career and personal goals. Yossra also works with master degree students at one of the biggest university in British Columbia, and wherein she coaches students on resumes, on cover letters, presentations, and interview skills. So thank you, Yossra. You know, without you, if you would not have joined, this webinar would not exist, honestly.
Aw, thank you so
Honestly.
much. Thank
Oh,
you, Dalia, for
honestly.
inviting me. It's a pleasure being here with you today, and thank you for everyone who joined us today. Thank you for the introduction.
So why Canadian-style resumes? Over the years, I have been receiving resumes from foreign nationals as they were looking for a job. Even I do not advertise anywhere on my website or social media that I provide job search related services. So, but based on how these resumes were presented, I greatly doubted that Canadian employer might consider their candidacy. So as a result, I have been thinking for some time to host a webinar to help applicants understand the requirements for a Canadian-style resume, because we applicants, immigrants, I'm an immigrant, we have different understanding regarding the resumes from our home country. What are the requirements for Canadian-style resumes? However, I do not have the expertise necessary to assist applicants for the job market. I have been assisting immigrants, and I can help immigrants with their resumes for Canadian immigration purposes. That's no problem. And therefore, when I was introduced to Yossra, as a result, here is this webinar. So I will discuss Canadian resume requirements for Canadian immigration purposes, and Yossra will take over. So please, ladies and gentlemen, have in mind that this webinar is for educational purposes only, and this is not a legal advice, just for educational purposes. So Canadian style resume, where we can encounter Canadian style resume in the context of immigration. In application for study permits. Let's say if you are applying for a master's degree, a study permit for master's degree or for PhD, a resume most likely will be required, and a resume would enhance your application for approval. Work permits, whether it is international mobility work permit, LMIA required or LMIA exempt, your resume is also required. LMIA, labor market impact assessment. Regardless that LMIAs are not, it's Canadian employers' duty and responsibility to review the LMIAs, but it is your responsibility as an applicant to prepare the resume in the most efficient and easy to read manner. So, you need to ask yourself a question. Does your resume look chaotic? Is there irrelevant and unnecessary information in your resume? Do you really expect an HR to read all this job listings or job responsibilities, which may not be relevant to the position you're applying? You may be the best candidate. You may have the best qualities for the position, but if your resume at a glance does not reveal your qualifications, I believe you have very little luck or no luck that employer would look at your resume. Also, and I believe later, or Yossra may interrupt me and correct if I'm wrong or not, having in mind the digital age, the recruitment industry has changed enormously. What worked in the past, professionally may turn totally fatal. And because recruiters, I believe, no longer read resumes, they scan. I worked on an LMIA with an employer, and they were advertising on LinkedIn. And the HR from that company just did the keyword search and eliminated applicants who were not qualified, and that's how they chose. So, and another category, because I am in Ontario Provincial Nominee Program, all the categories require that resume be included in the submission of the application. So, and I believe other provinces may have that requirement as well. And because Ontario Provincial Nominee is an economic category, a resume becomes part of your immigration application package, where the officer will assess your eligibility. So your resume most likely will be cross-referenced with your employment verification letter, with your employment history. And because this is an economic category, your resume is connected with the national occupation classification. In short, it is called NOC categories. So for an immigration application let's leave it. I leave it on the screen for participants to read. But for immigration application, chronological resume is the best format because, and by the way, you're welcome to download the chronological style resume template from my website. It is absolutely free of charge. and you can use it for your advantage. Of course, this template is not the only acceptable style, but that style is very clear, easy to read for an immigration officer. So in immigration application, the reader is immigration officer. So make it simple, make it simple, make it easy for immigration officer to read your resume. Make it simple that the immigration officer will have every single chance to approve your application. Your immigration file is in the hands of the immigration officer. So in your case, in the immigration application, a cover letter is not required. Because why? Because you are not looking for a job, but you are simply accounting for your employment history in your immigration application. So also, especially these days when immigration is scrutinizing applications, you need to ensure that your social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn would be up to date, because immigration officers will cross-reference, and they have been doing this. They have been doing. So it is, I'm very sorry, I got into the immigration field, which was not my intention, but I could not resist. I just could not resist. So different countries, as I mentioned before, have different requirements for resumes, which may not be in alignment with those of Canadian standards. And here is the template. So let's go a little bit regarding this template, and I enlarge, yes, the template. So the template is very simple. So you list what you are doing right now, what you are working, what is your title, what are your responsibilities at the present job. So you're at the present time, because it's very important for immigration that you were accurate. Then if for the past means what you did in the past. You indicate your city, the country, the title, and of course, as I mentioned before, your resume needs to be connected to the National Occupation Classification. So for simplicity reasons, I chose carpenters. So as you can see, carpenters have many titles. There are very many titles, and these titles are applicable to applicants who they fall under this national classification occupation as a carpenter, but they can be apprentice carpenter, carpenter joiner, then like no, it's not. Let's go a little bit further. So see, there is the whole list of carpenters, carpenter lead hand, carpenter rough, all these, and what I want to say, this is the description of the duties on main duties. So what you would need to copy, at least 60%, you need to perform duties and responsibilities under the NOC. But at the same time, you cannot just copy word for word. You can copy and paste, but you need to adjust to your duties and responsibilities, because otherwise, if you copy and paste, and it is applicable to your job verification letter and to your resume, that will not go well, and most likely, your application will be refused. So let's say, so the carpenter measures, cut, shape, assemble joint materials, make wood substances, substitutes, lightweight steel, and other materials. What are these other materials? Maybe there are no other materials. Maybe you have to, and you should go and describe in more details, what are these lightweight, what is this lightweight steel? What are wood substitutes? Substitutes. You should be specific. What are they? Then let's say in this, maintain, repair, and renovate residences and wooden structures in mills, mines, hospitals, industrial plants, and other establishments. What are these other establishments? Are you one person working in all these mills, mines, hospitals, industrial plants? So you would need to adjust, to amend this every specific wording and be specific to your current current position. That is how you need to use this NOC description, main duties. I'm not going into education. I'm not going into any other requirements because this is not our topic. Is topic resumes, but because they fall under immigration category, so I touched it. So this is what it is. Now I have downloaded from the website, from the internet, some resumes. I didn't want to use, and I'm not going to use the resumes that people have sent when they were looking for a job because I don't find it appropriate. But the reason is I am using these resumes because I see the same issue, the same mistakes. I will briefly, Yossra will be more specific, but this is basic requirements for Canadian immigration and for Canadian job market. You don't write on your curriculum vitae. You don't indicate personal information. And look at this person. He indicated three email addresses. That will be confusing for the employer. Do you think employer is going to, let's say for if you submit your resume for LMIA, do you think employer is going to waste the time and sort it out which resume? Date of birth, nationality, gender. This is not for Canadian style resume. This is not. And in addition, this resume has very many mistakes. I just mentioned, and it is convoluted, like the way written, the dates and so on. It has to be easy for an immigration officer. This is nothing. This resume, I would say, like, doesn't describe what this person is doing. It's very hard born. We don't need the date of birth. It's the same typical mistakes. Softwares. Why somebody has to be guessing? Maybe, let's say, if this resume gets into the hands of HR person, the HR person may not know what these abbreviations are, and this is not. Okay, so the other issue is here. Again, this is the same mistakes, Education is not employment. No religion should be indicated also. This is all very private, and that's not according to Canadian standards for Canadian immigration, neither Canadian labor job market, and Yossra will correct me if I made some mistakes. Sorry, here it is another resume. I didn't start even reading this resume because it's very hard, and I would just skip this resume, and so that's it for me. I went, I think, very fast. I exceeded 1 minute on my time, or maybe I'm fine. And so the floor will be Yossra's, and Yossra will control her slides. And after she's done, we will be open for your questions. Please text in the chat box, in the question and answer box, and we will try to answer all your questions, except regarding immigration, case-specific questions. I would not be able to answer that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think just bear with me. I have to stop sharing my screen, stop sharing, and that is Yossra. I think you have the access to the.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dalia. This was a great presentation. I learned a lot,
Mhm.
actually.
Oh,
And
good, good.
I will kind of go over a few things because sometimes it depends on the resume and who's applying and what their background is. Sometimes it's actually recommended to have the education at the top versus at the bottom. Well, I'll get to that. I'll try to get to
Sure.
that. So it depends.
Please, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me try to share. See. Deck. Yep. And I will put it in presentation mode. So let me see if you see it in presentation mode or not. So I'll just give it a second to kind of.
I think it's not yet. Not, yes.
Now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, we can
Now
see it
Perfect.
now.
it's good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dalia. Thank you, Oscar. Um, yeah, so I'm really excited about this session because the idea is really to empower newcomers as they come to Canada. We really want to see you guys succeed. I immigrated to Canada almost 17 years ago, and I wish I had someone who could share some information with me about resumes, cover letters, and other things as well. And yeah, I've learned a lot from Dalia from the immigration side, and I will walk you through things from the job search in Canada. I'll do like a very quick introduction because I know Dalia did an amazing job with the introduction. Thank you, Dalia. I'm a certified academic life and career coach. I'm ACC accredited with ICF, which means I've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of coaching. I'm also a certified job club leadership facilitator, which means I'm qualified to run workshops around resumes, cover letters. So I'm trained in that part. I've also have like more than 7 years experience in education and career development here in Canada. And what I love about coaching is it's really all about empowering you to kind of like figure out what works for you. So one resume does not fit all, one cover letter does not fit all. So yeah, I hope this message is clear, and I will get into why one resume does not fit all in a bit. Okay, let me minimize the side here because I can't see. Let's see. Okay. Um, so even though I will try to focus more on the strategic resume and cover letter writing for the Canadian job market, as well as interview preparation for success, but the way I like to look at things is more from a holistic overview. And that is why I will also talk about like career pathways in Canada, networking and community integration. I'll also touch on like some of the important soft skills and professional presence, understanding the Canadian workplace culture, education pathways, and life coaching for newcomers. And yeah, I'll encourage you to just write your questions and to just ask them towards the end. Okay, so let's start with a warm up because I would really love to get to know you a little bit. So if you can share in the chat your professional background, like if it's engineering, accounting, or anything else, and trades, for example, Dalia used carpenter, which is falls under trades. And just let us know what excites you most about working in Canada or hopefully coming to Canada to work. Um, I wrote like a few examples here: new career opportunities, meeting new people, learning and growth, changing or pivoting your career. This was kind of what I did, supporting family. But what else? Like, feel free to share a little thing or two about yourself in the chat. I'll give you a minute, and I will also share something about me. So, please don't be shy. Please share something. So let's see. And yeah, I see some questions in the chat. We might be able to get to most of them towards the end. But yeah, let's see here. Okay, agriculture graduate here in the Philippines. Thank you. I think I wrote it in the wrong chat, so I'm also writing something. Nurse, beautiful. Education, nice. Changing to HR, okay, that's great. In Tunisia, oh my, I love Tunisian food. Frankfurt mobility program. Okay, thank you. We'll try to answer questions again towards the end. Yeah, I'll give you just a couple seconds if anyone wants to add anything else. Thank you so much for participating. Okay. Okay, I'll move to the next slide, and if anyone wants to add anything, please do. Medical laboratory technologist, great, perfect, thank you. Wow, we have like a really nice group of people here, different backgrounds, lovely. Okay, I'll move to the next slide. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, okay. Yep. Okay, so when it comes to planning for different career pathways in Canada, for some people, it's a very direct career pathway. For example, if you're an engineer and you want to come and work in Canada as an engineer, it's probably like a very direct pathway. You have to go through specific engineering associations depending on which province you're in. Yeah, for those, again, it can be a little more clear. But for other people, it might be an option to look for alternative career pathways. For example, I saw someone write, they come with a background in education, but they would like to work in HR, and that's totally fine. It's always good to kind of like see what skills you have and to identify your transferable skills, and also to find ways to build new skills depending on what you want to do here in Canada. It's important to kind of like see what do I have and what do I need, and then to work on this. And one practical tip is, again, a lot of people come to Canada thinking, okay, I want to work this. And then if they look for a particular job and, they can't find what they're looking for, they lose that momentum and they feel less motivated. But it is also to come, it's very important to come to Canada with an open mind. There are a lot of hidden jobs, and the only way you can know about those different jobs is by talking to people in your target field. So if you want to work in agriculture, then you need to talk to experts in the field, and to kind of connect with people online or in person. Now, I personally think that networking is very important, whether in other countries, or here in Canada. But I can tell you for sure, networking is critical in Canada, especially when it comes to finding work. It's also super important to do online networking, for example, through LinkedIn, reaching to people through LinkedIn, trying to like have informational interviews to get to know their background, how they started, and things like that. And it's the same with in-person networking. And you'll find so many opportunities here in Canada to do networking without even some events are completely free or like very, very low price. And there's also a lot of community groups, there's mentorship programs, opportunities to volunteer to get that Canadian experience on your resume. And this was actually how I started. I worked an unpaid job for like a couple months, but I got like an amazing reference letter and an amazing reference, and that helped me to kind of find my next job. So yeah, there are different ways to get the Canadian experience. And I would say my tip is start small. Try to attend free local meetups or virtual events. Aim for one meaningful contact each time you meet someone. And I can see people here like probably living in different countries at the moment. You can even, if you're applying to Canada for immigration, I mean, feel free to start networking early on. I don't see any harm in that to kind of like prepare and understand what you need to do upon your arrival to Canada. So resumes, there's definitely different structures and purposes to resumes. For example, if it's a resume for, let's say you want to apply for a particular type of training or education, even for immigration, it might look a little different to what a resume for a Canadian job would look like. So for example, resumes to apply for training, it will probably focus on proving education and work history for eligibility, while in a Canadian job, a resume, you also want to focus on market skills to get interviews. The length of the resume, again, for training, usually we recommend 2 pages, but might be more. But definitely for a Canadian job resume, it needs to be 1 to 2 pages max. One will have full duties and dates for all the jobs. For a Canadian job resume, you really want to focus on relevant duties and achievements. The style, one could be formal, factual, less persuasive, but again, for the Canadian job market, you want it to be more persuasive and really tailored for that job you're applying to. And I think the last point, depending again on the resume, you might have to accompany the resume with, it has to be accompanied by proof documents. But for a Canadian job, you don't usually need to um, attach any proof unless the employer requests that. But I've noticed like for people working in engineering or architecture, for example, or interactive arts and technology, web page development, graphic design, they employers really like to see a portfolio. So some people will include a link to their portfolio in their resume. Okay, so strategic resume and cover letter writing. So again, as I mentioned, a Canadian resume format should be 2 pages max, and it needs to be tailored. It needs to be customized for each job application. And I promise you that takes time. So if someone tells me I am applying to 10, 15 jobs per day, I don't know if they're actually customizing the resume or cover letter. And your cover letter, you need to remember it is your unique story. And one of the things that we hear a lot from employers nowadays is they can see that applicants are using AI extensively, right? And then even though using AI can make your cover letter sound, perfect in terms of language and grammar and all that, it does not show any personal branding and authenticity unless you actually add your own touch and your own branding and your own interests and feelings, right? ChatGPT might know a lot about you because we do share a lot of information about ourselves on ChatGPT, but it does not really know our experiences, how excited we are about the role, why we're applying to the specific company. Like for example, one of my students, he applied to his dream company, and he was able to write that in his cover letter. It was his dream. Obviously, ChatGPT would not have known that. And he got the job. So, you know, so yeah, I just want to remind everyone to use AI, smartly, and don't lose your own branding and authenticity. And a reminder, one resume does not fit all. And yeah, and I will touch on that again, why I say that in a bit. Okay, so a lot of people ask, like, okay, how can I connect my experience with the requirements in the job description? And one of my favorite methods is to do the requirement experience mapping. And it's honestly like a matching game where you're matching what you see in the job posting, in the job description, the qualifications, the skills to your own skills. So it's really important to read through the job posting and to look at the list of requirements, skills, qualifications, and duties. And then you write those down in a column. And then in the column next to it, you try to match your experience in the second column by writing down what you've done in school, work, volunteering, what skills you have if they match those skills. And I have like an example here. So for example, if in the job requirement it says strong communication skills, you can say I gave a class presentation, answered customer questions, but I hope in the actual resume that you be way more specific than that. So again, I'm just using this to simplify it as an example, but in an actual resume, you actually have to give more context and details, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. But yeah, this method is one of my favorite methods, and it just makes it so much easier. And it helps you to hit all the keywords that Dalia was talking about. Yeah, I hope you find this helpful and useful. Okay, I'll touch on a few do's and don'ts when it comes to resume and cover letter writing. So these are like some of the do's. Preparing two versions of your resume, creating an ATS. So ATS stands for Application Tracking Systems. So some companies use ATS systems to kind of look for the keywords, and I think maybe that was that what Dalia was referring to, like the system looks for the keywords. If you use the right keywords, then you will be selected. So that's definitely one way. So create two resumes, one that can is ADS friendly. Okay, so it literally have one column, plain formatting, nothing too fancy. And then create another resume that's more visually appealing with a design, with columns, but please keep it clear and simple. Again, Dalia showed us a couple examples. It was just all over the place, too messy. So yeah, try to keep it as simple as possible. And there's like a lot of online, there's a lot of like online platforms that can help you to create lovely designs, but still very simple. And if you're unsure, when you're applying for a job, if the job is asking you to copy paste things or it uploads a resume and then it shows you like all the things you wrote in like sections in an online form, that could potentially mean it's an ATS system that's looking at the resume or profiling the resume. If you're ever unsure, feel free to call the employers and just ask, do you guys use ADS systems or not? If not, then you can, more comfortably apply like the more visually pleasing with a column and, something that's structured a little bit better. Again, tailor for each job. So customize your resume to match the job posting. So the requirement experience mapping will help a lot. Be specific and results oriented to frame your experiences clearly, to clearly show the impact. So, for example, if you say, I gave presentations, that's not enough. Like, how many presentations? How big were the groups that you presented to? What was the impact of the presentations? These would be things that you should like write about in the resume and cover letter without obviously, again, always to remember to keep things simple. It's not a biography, as they say. Okay, so some of the don'ts is, again, don't rely heavily on ChatGPT or other AI tools without personalization. Um, Employers nowadays, they can actually tell right away if you're using ChatGPT or any other AI tools. They notice like it uses a bunch of adjectives that typically people don't use when they're writing on their own. So yeah, keep an eye on something like that. Don't overuse adjectives and words that you don't typically use in your own language. And also sometimes you'll see like a lot of like dashes. Again, these are kind of like two things that they look for. So if you feel like there's a lot of dashes, maybe like remove some of them and use commas instead or full stops or whatever. And obviously, don't include everything you've ever done in your resume. It's not a full biography. Focus on what's relevant when it comes to your experiences, skills, and achievements. Okay, so there's different types of resumes. Some people who have like a very steady career, it's in the same field, they can use a chronological resume structure, which is really like they start with their latest job and kind of walk down to their like older jobs. And then the functional is more for people who have gone through a lot of career changes, they have gaps. For those ones, you can kind of put your skills and group them in categories, but also, include towards the end a bit of work history. Um, but my favorite and most job seekers here in Canada use the hybrid style, which usually has like skills at the top, and probably your education, and then you get into the chronological work experience. But again, I'd say again, I could have like shared samples today, but I feel like every person, depending on their background, the resume might look very different. So if you're an engineer or you're in the tech industry, your resume might look very different to someone who works in accounting or, anything else. So again, one resume does not fit all, and usually I ask a bunch of questions to help the person I'm working with to decide on what works best for them. Okay, let's do another check-in activity because I really want to get to know a little bit more about you. Now, when it comes to resumes and cover letters, what is your biggest worry? And I won't take too long here because I really want to try to finish the rest of the presentation before the end. So yeah, when it comes to resumes and cover letters, what are your biggest worries? I mean, I remember when I first came to Canada, it was not knowing the Canadian style. But yeah, I have some options here for you. Feel free to use any of them if it's relevant, or just write your own. And let me open the chat. Okay, let's see. And it's okay if how to brand yourself. Okay. Yes, absolutely. That's a big one. Not knowing how to sell my skills. Especially when you do not have enough experience. Yep. Yeah, and I think this other one, not knowing the Canadians are resume and selling my skills. Okay, I feel like yeah, most of us here have the same worries. Um Yeah. I would say my biggest advice is when you come to Canada, please remember that your experience, whatever it was back home, means something here in Canada, and your education means something here in Canada. And it's just a matter of how to present that in the resume and cover letter. And also, my biggest advice is once you come, like do the research, again, talk to people in the field. A lot of them will, you'll be surprised. Your qualifications might be perfect for here, right? Maybe you need to do like a tiny small certificate. Maybe that's one thing that you're missing. And I think for the branding piece, I think it's really important to think about what you want to do and who you are, like really understanding your skill set and just seeing what companies and employers are looking for and just you know um, describing and making that connection, well, the requirement experience, just doing a good job with that, that usually helps a lot with the branding. And again, just knowing what you want to do. And that might require some time. So don't be too hard on yourself. You'll figure it out. Okay, so let me click again so I have access. Okay. Interview preparation for success. There's like common Canadian interview formats. I do a lot of mock interviews with students, and I always ask them, like after they come, after the mock interview, like, what did they ask you? Like, was it what we practiced? And they're always like, yeah, yep. Most of the interviews here have like very similar structures, and they usually ask like a mix of like traditional questions, situational, behavioral, that kind of thing. And there are different methods for answering questions, and ways to show ways to how to discuss gaps in your career shifts and things to look out for, such as pausing and pacing. Depending on where you originally come from, sometimes people naturally speak faster. So again, trying to like pace and pause when you're in an interview. And again, one of my tips is just practice out loud and record yourself answering three common questions. When and ask yourself, what are you noticing? Um, yeah, when it comes to soft skills, it's really what they're looking for is communication, teamwork, problem solving. I think the biggest and most important one is adaptability and being open-minded and open to learning. You don't have to be an expert in everything and know everything, but just be open to learning and problem solving. Again, there's Canadian expectations for assertiveness and timeliness. So I'm from Egypt. We're usually very bad with timing, but I've learned to be on time, if not before. And yeah, smile, listen actively, maintain eye contact. These are all small actions that can build trust quickly. Again, I'm sorry I'm going faster because I'm looking at the time. I think I have like two more slides. Understanding the Canadian workplace culture, it is really important to be open and culturally sensitive and aware because you meet people from all over the world here in Canada. That's kind of like the best thing that I love about this country. And again, obviously not making assumptions. If you're not sure, please ask questions. If you want to clarify something with your manager, just ask questions. This would be my advice. Again, with educational pathways, again, new immigrants sometimes they'll come to Canada, they're like, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that without really needing to pay all the money to do all these certificates and degrees. So my advice is always verify your credentials, see if they need assessments, talk to verifying professional buddies and experts in the field to really figure out what you need to do. If you need to do something before you kind of hop into an expensive degree. And then last but not least, I love life coaching for newcomers. I know sometimes it can be super hard and overwhelming when we come to Canada. But yeah, know that you're not alone and try to surround yourself with good people and have good support systems. Um, and yeah, these are some of the things that I support people with, whether it's like identifying transferable skills, detailed resume and cover letter reviews, mock interviews. Again, this kind of like speaks a little bit about my passion, what I'm passionate about. Thank you so much. I left my email here if anyone has any questions that we don't have time to answer today, or yeah, you just want to connect, please do. Thank you so much. Yes, we have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Yossra. Thank you. That was very informative
Oh,
and,
thank you.
informative for me because I have never dealt with resumes for a very long time. So I'm looking at the very first question and I will answer and Yossra will answer. So why is date of birth not required? We are talking immigration resume. You have all the information, date and so on, other information in your immigration application in different forms. But aside from that, if you indicate a date of birth, it says it could be discriminatory. Employers should not ask you age, and right away somebody says, oh, he's too young. Oh, he's too old. So, Yossra, you say,
Yep. Yeah,
correct?
I absolutely agree. Or like putting your photo or, you know,
Exactly. And photo,
religion.
religion, all this, what I mentioned, should not be indicated because it's not it's not necessary and it is clutter. It's just not acceptable in Canadian style. Canadian style resumes, period. Then I see these are from our chats, our experience at education, and okay. So my comment was when you were saying this guy really wanted about ChatGPT and any AI should be used to enhance your knowledge, because I can recognize when some text is written by ChatGPT, and sometimes, like really it can be a disservice to you. And that person that you were mentioning, he got a job because he wrote that cover letter with passion from the heart, human spirit. That is, it is very important. And somebody says, I think Yossra, you answered about branding. Not knowing how to sell my skills. How Oscar, you don't know how to sell your skills. You do know how to sell your skills.
You do.
You do know how to sell yourself. So, okay, so fine. To sell your skills, you first of all, you need to showcase that you have the skills.
Yes.
Marketing. Because if you can have these skills, be brilliant at what you do, but if nobody knows that you exist, so go on social media and so on and so forth. Come on, Oscar, okay. And not knowing, okay, so one of the biggest mistakes that and I have made in the past, and other people people who go for interviews make, is when the interviewing person asks, tell about yourself. People start telling, and I had done it in the past, about myself. But the person who is interviewing wants to know about your professional experience and expertise, not about you. You came from, immigrated, and so on. That's not what they are looking. So I think very often I read from even on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn says, "Oh, I sent so many resumes, 100 resumes, and no job." So, and Yossra exactly answered that question, that it has to be customized. It has to be customized. And I remember I received the resume for a position that I sent a resume, and it was really a good resume, a good experience, but not format. Like if you are you are applying for an advertised, non-advertised, or advertised job, you also need to find who is the person in charge. Let's say I get, "Hi, madam, here is my resume." Well, on the website, it's indicated my name, Dalia Milmantas, or my partner. So it has to be personalized.
Yes. And can I
So
add something to that?
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
One thing I tell people is if you're sending hundreds of resumes and you're not getting any interviews, then you obviously need to look at the resume and try to see where it went wrong and what you need to change, right? If let's say you're submitting resumes and you're getting interviews, let's say you got 5, 6 interviews, but you're not getting the job, then maybe you need to ask yourself, am I doing the interviewing properly or not? So I think it's good to kind of ask, like just to kind of reflect and ask yourself if this is happening. But another thing is, you know what, sending 100 resumes is like it's fine. Hopefully you'll find something, right? But yeah, the market can sometimes be competitive. So I would say just always ask yourself, do I have the proper resume? Do I have the proper cover letter? Am I ready for the interview? Do I have the right skills? And just do your best. Hopefully, almost guaranteed you're gonna find something.
But look how much work it needs to be put in if
Yes.
you are honestly, genuinely
Yes.
preparing these resumes. So
Yes.
every single resume has to be, um, um, adjusted
Tailored
to
and personalized.
tailored,
Yes.
and the resume and the
Yes.
cover letter,
Yep.
everything.
Yes.
So, the matter is not quantity, but
Yes.
quality.
100%.
quality.
100%. And yeah, I usually also ask people like if you submitted 2, 3 resumes and cover letters per day and you did that in 5 hours, 6 hours, that means you put in the effort, right? But if you submitted 10 in an hour, then obviously something's wrong.
So I also write the word smile. I remember when I started working in Canada, I originally immigrated from Lithuania, a tiny country by the Baltic Sea. My note was smile. So when you go to an interview, you should also smile, because it's much more easy, much more pleasant to deal with a person when the person is smiling rather than and when you are smiling, you are demonstrating that you are relaxed, you are confident, and that will, I think Yossra will agree, and if she does not, she will correct me, that you will have much better results if you are smiling. Let's think about me and Yossra. If we are bum bum, like how pleasant would be that to listen to us speak. So smiles also, I think, will take you long. Okay, any more questions? If you have any.
I see one that says here, not knowing how to sell your skills. I think we touched on that, but when I do not have enough experience, I think a lot of times people think that the only way you can get the experience is just through an actual job, but you can actually get some experience if, let's say, you're volunteering or you're working on a project, helping someone with a project within your field. So I think there's like different ways to get the Canadian experience. Um, Personally, I really like, for example, joining a board of directors with an association organization that you're interested in working at, right? And you're not getting paid to be on the board, but you're still learning about the company or making the networking and the connections within. So there's different ways to kind of like get experience and in, I guess.
You know, I think all of us, when we want to do, instead of saying, I don't, you say, how can I get experience? Or how can I get that job? How can I get from point A to point B? And then it will come. The answer will come to you when we ask, how can I?
I love that.
How can I?
Yes,
There is
I love that.
always there is always a way. There is always a way.
I love that.
So we still have a couple of minutes. If there are questions, we are open. If not, we are grateful that you joined us. And I hope, and I believe Yossra is the same opinion, that the webinar, it was valuable. So all the who participated and who registered for the webinar will receive a link with the recording that you would be able to listen one more time if there is, you would like to something to remember better and get prepared more. If there
Thank
are
you so
no,
much, Dalia.
you're very welcome, Yossra. Thank you for agreeing to do this webinar, because myself I would not have done. I need
Aw,
expert from
teamwork.
the Canadian job market, so I can take applicants to certain point, but then I don't know. All right, take care. Goodbye. Good night. Good afternoon to everyone, and all the best.
Thank you all. Good night. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you. Have a good one.